Hello and welcome to Ra's Daily Drive, my very vlog where I meander my way through various topics. Today, episode, I believe it is now 3, will be a unusual topic for some. My thoughts on urban exploration, or as it is popularly known, Urbex. For those who are not aware of what it is, urban exploration is pretty much exactly that. It is people who go out, or the process of going out and exploring abandoned buildings. Some of these have been long abandoned, some of these may have been only recently abandoned. It just depends on what people choose to explore. There are a lot of people who go out there and do Urbex. There's a lot of people who are on YouTube who do Urbex, and they film themselves and the places that they visit, put it up on YouTube, which has always been kind of a bit of a quandary for me, because at the heart of it, going and exploring an abandoned place is, generally speaking, trespassing. It's against the law. You're getting into a place. Maybe you're not breaking in. Maybe there's a door that's hanging wide open. And for some people, that's like an invitation. Hey, come on in. This door's open. Legally, it's not legal. I mean, some people probably would look at that as a gray area, and say, hey, if the building's not secure, there's nothing stopping me from walking in. Well, that's true, but you don't go opening someone's car door just because it's unlocked. Now, that said, I think there are a lot of Urbexers out there who want to go in for much the same reason I would. And that is, I want to look around. I want to see what this place was. I want to see, what it was all about, what's still there, see things that, I might not ordinarily encounter, especially if it's an older building. Most Urbexers are generally going to be fairly respectful of the location. They're not there to trash it. And chances are good, if it's an older location, it's probably trashed already. There's probably not much left, honestly. I've seen a lot of videos where you're lucky if you have an intact building. That's about it. The windows are smashed out. Anything that's glass or breakable, ceramic, it's all busted. Wiring and copper is stripped out of the building. It's just a trash. Just nothing left. And it's unfortunate because, as someone who has gone out and explored some random buildings, I love seeing places that are intact, places that aren't tagged with graffiti. I want to see places that someone hasn't ransacked and turned into a dump. Those are the kind of places that I think, for me at least, are the most fun to explore. Something that, for a lot of the people that I've seen via YouTube, also doing Urbex, seem to agree with. They don't want to see a building that's been set on fire, put out, and there's not much left but a hollowed out blackened shell. It's boring. It's not interesting. You don't go to a car show looking at a car that was, burned up and all rusted out and there's nothing left but the body. You actually want to see what the car was in its heyday, what it looked like. And I think a lot of Urbexers, want that same thing when they go explore a building. I want to say they look at a building and say, hey, what was this? And there's some Urbexers that go through a lot of work to even research the buildings that they choose to go explore. Some of it's for security purposes, because obviously you don't want to go walking into a site that's very heavily patrolled, and the chances of you getting caught while doing so are high. And there are still those who will take that risk anyway. But there's also people who want to be careful because, you might be walking onto a Superfund site or some other site that, for whatever reason, you shouldn't really be going into. There's hazards. There's asbestos, especially, that you have to be watchful for. And a lot of the very responsible Urbexers know in advance, hey, I have a respirator, I have, safety gear, I'm going to be careful when I'm going in and doing this. And then you have people who just kind of wander into places. Maybe they've got a flashlight, maybe they've got just their phone. You never know. And, they're not necessarily doing it as a YouTube channel. I think the people who are on YouTube tend to be a little bit more serious, tend to be a little bit better prepared. I probably fall a little bit more into the second category of, hey, I'm just going to go in there and do this thing. If it's a place, if I know I'm going to go explore ahead of time, I will be prepared. I will have, a face mask. I may have goggles, gloves, boots, all that sort of thing. I'm not there to tag things. I'm not there to put, graffiti or anything like that. I'm not there to strip all the wires out, if there's even any left. I'm not there to take stuff. There's been times I've been sorely tempted. And I have a bit of a mixed opinion on that situation. I once visited a house that was due to be demolished. Like, we knew it was on the block. It wasn't going to be just torn down, it was going to be burned down. Because a power company bought a whole bunch of property and said, we don't want anything near us. We're burning all of this stuff down. And that included old houses. And I'm talking old houses. Stuff, well, okay, not old, but stuff from, the early 1900s at some points. And that, to me, just, it hurts. Because I think a lot of old houses have a lot of good history in them, especially if they've been well taken care of. There are some cases where, unfortunately, if a house has been abandoned for some time, it's not been well cared for, roof starts leaking, or the foundation starts to bust up, water gets in, you've got black mold, you've got wood rot, the building just becomes unsafe at that point. And unfortunately, short of dumping a ton of money into something like that, the average house just isn't, in my opinion, likely to be worthwhile to put that much money in to fix up. And certainly in cases like this, where you have a company that has gone in, bought lot after lot after lot of property, and say, hey, we're tearing this out because we just want clear open space. No one's going to save that house. No one's going to save anything out of that house, more than likely. And that's unfortunate at times. I know there are people who would go in, if they had the opportunity, and carefully remove things and make them available to people who are looking to restore other old houses. The one I went to had all of the transom window levers all still intact, still viable, still working. They weren't rusted up or anything like that. The house was itself, aside from the basement, which was flooded, was in pretty decent condition. Like, I didn't, find any bad spots in the floors. No obvious, pools of water where it had been coming in through the roof. I don't know what the situation with the basement was that had caused it to flood, but it looked like it had been that way for some time when I was there. And this was several years ago. And it just looked like whoever had been in the home just left. There was stuff everywhere. There was obviously some attempt that some things were removed, because it's not like the house was fully furnished. It's not like somebody had went to work and then never came home, but there was still a lot left. It could have been something akin to maybe it was an older person, maybe they had a health situation pop up suddenly and they had to be put into like an assisted living facility and they just could not take everything. Maybe they died and the house just sat vacant. Maybe some family came in, took a few things out, and left the rest because a lot of it's junk. You never know what a situation is unless you really go in and try to do the research. And unfortunately, in this situation, I didn't have that luxury of time. The house was due to basically be burnt down, within the next day or so. And it was, as it turns out. So myself and a couple other people went in and we looked around. And I'm not going to lie. I did take some things from this house. I took some very old doorknobs that are the kind of the glass, very decorative type that you just don't see made anymore. And I also took a single transom window lever mechanism. And I had a very practical reason for wanting to do this. I'd been looking for one for quite some time. I had a house that had a transom window where the hardware had been removed for as long as I could remember. It had been my grandparents' house. I had inherited it. And I wanted that window viable. I wanted it operational. I wanted it to actually work again. I like to restore things. Every time I see an old building like that, that process starts kicking in of what would it take to fix this? And most of the time my brain immediately goes, way more money than I ever will own. And again, it kind of saddens me because I'm a bit of a fixer at heart. If I see something that is broken, I want to fix it. I want to see that it makes it work again. I want to see that it's usable. Unfortunately, the realism of that is I possess neither the money, time, nor skills to repair everything I encounter that is busted. If I had all three of those, I'd probably be living large, but hey, I get by, right? So, I took this old transom window lever mechanism out of this house because this was something that wasn't just going to be, hey, I'm doing this to sell it, I'm doing it for the scrap, I'm doing this to help restore another house. A house, from a house that's not going to be here long. It's not that it's going to be missed. And yes, you could rationalize this for almost any abandoned building. Oh, well, it's abandoned. Clearly, they don't want it. I don't necessarily agree with that. For the most part, I want to see an abandoned building left alone. I want to see it, as is. I do admit I felt very conflicted about taking this transom window and the doorknobs because, it goes against the general ethic of urban exploration a lot. I think one of the core tenets of urban exploration is take only pictures, leave only footprints. And I think that's true for like hikers and whatnot as well. You don't want to mess up what you're going to see. You want to leave it there for someone else to enjoy. You don't want to make it worse than what it was. And again, I felt very conflicted about that. But when the fact comes down to it that I know for sure this house is not going to be here for very long. No one else is probably going to be here to enjoy it. And honestly, I wish I would have had more time. I wish I would have had more time to go poke around in this house. Because there was a lot of neat stuff. Old stuff, busted stuff, kind of gross stuff at some points. I would not have gone poking around in the basement. I didn't have a pair of hip waders, and trust me, that's about what it would have taken to stay dry. But the house was a really interesting one, and it was an old house, old farmhouse, out in the middle of the country. So it had been out there for quite some time. And I wish I would have had a chance to explore it more, a little bit more leisurely. By the time we got there, it was kind of the late afternoon already, so I didn't have a lot of daylight. I think I only had one flashlight. It's just one of those things where it's just like, you want to go explore things more. And I know I've seen other Urbex videos where that's exactly the same problem that they've had. You have a couple of people or a small group arrive to a location, but it's so late that by the time you get there, there's just not much time left. And obviously with a site that has any kind of security, you do have to be watchful and mindful of any light. Because obviously, sure, you can go explore a place at night. There are plenty of Urbex videos that show people doing exactly that. But you have to consider any kind of light source from an abandoned building emanating from within is very noticeable and is likely to get, security called, the police called, and you don't want that as an urban explorer, because that makes things very much not fun. At the very least, you'll probably just get kicked off with a warning of the property, with a warning. Worst, you could be facing jail time and fines, or potentially worse. So you never know. You don't know. It's just going to depend on who comes and responds, who checks things out. Are they just paid security that are there to tell people, hey, just go, leave, don't come back? Or are they people who are actively looking to, enforce laws, against trespassing and all that? And the biggest problem is for a lot of these places, a lot of them are very trashed. And if, a law enforcement individual was inclined to be such, they could basically try to, pin blame on you. Would they be able to make it stick? Iffy. Very iffy, in my opinion. I'm no legal expert. Just saying, not a legal expert. But in my opinion, I don't think it would be very easy to make that stick, because one of the more important things, if you're going out to explore, you're not there to destroy. You're not there to tag. Don't go carrying crowbars and hammers and lots of cans of spray paint, because it's obvious you're not there to just look around. If you're walking in with a camera and some basic protective gear, it's going to be pretty obvious you're not there to destroy. You're there to remember. You're there to document that location, essentially. It's still trespassing when it boils down to it. Unless you are very fortunate and maybe you know a place that has somebody like a caretaker or a maintenance guy or something, where you can actually gain legitimate permission from the landowner to say, hey, this is all on you. Chances are good, if you get hurt, sorry, that's it. You knew this was an abandoned place. You're taking the risk yourself, and that's true of any urban exploration. But I would say it's essentially true too that if you do find a place where you can find someone to give you permission to be there, you're still on your own, in my opinion. They may be letting you in, but they don't want the responsibility if you get hurt. And let's face it, if we choose to go into a place that we know hasn't been maintained, we know we're taking risks, or at least we should know. So I am all in favor of knowing about a place whenever possible. I see various urban exploration videos, and I'll be frankly honest, I can't watch some of them because of the guys who go in, they talk like they know everything. Oh, I know about this. This is this thing, and this did this stuff, and this room was totally used for this, and then they freak out over the slightest little noise. And they're just, in my opinion, annoying. Maybe somebody else will like them. A lot of people do. You know, it's just not my particular style. If I'm watching an Urbex video, I like seeing guys go in, guys, girls, whatever. Doesn't matter. But I like seeing people go in and explore. Hey, you know, you can make a joke every now and then. Hey, you can make a comment on something if this is really cool. But it can also be difficult to watch people who are, oh, this is so awesome. And then 5 minutes later, oh, this is so awesome. And then 5 minutes later, same thing over and over again. You know, if you can't be descriptive, if you can't add something more to, you know, what you're looking at, especially if you're going in there to film it specifically, I don't know, maybe not talk as much, or find something to say about what you're seeing. Be descriptive about it, I think. I'm offering critique for something I don't do. I would love to do this. I would love to have the equipment and the gear and the time to go in and go urbexing. I also have to face it, you know. I have hit the big 4-0. I'm not a lightweight, little scrawny person. I carry some meat on me. That may not be evident by the fact that you see me from, you know, here. But I've got a bit of extra weight on me. And some of these places are, to borrow the oft-used phrase from the proper people, very awesome Urbex channel, places can get sketchy. And being a heavier guy, I look at some of the things that have been explored online and think, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't want to risk doing that. You know, just because, you know, if something is that bad, you know, if the floor is that rotten or the beams are that shaky, you don't want to be the heavy guy going in and, oh, I'm just going to walk around here and take a look. That's not a good idea. But it's a risk that if one wants to do that, one has to take at times. And you can minimize your risks in doing these kind of things. Now, if you see a sketchy floor, you don't have to walk on it. You know, you can avoid that part of the floor. You can avoid that floor entirely. I went through an old house, and there was like just big gaping holes in the floor because there were big gaping holes in the roof above. And the floor was just rotten. And, you know, when you step down onto what should be a solid piece of wood and it goes squish, don't walk on it. It's not a good idea. I don't know. It's choose your risk wisely and be informed. You know, be aware of hazards. You know, potential hazards and certain hazards. You know, if a structure has been on fire at any point in time, you know, you don't know. You don't know how, you know, sturdy it still is, how structurally sound it is. It could collapse. You could get trapped. You could die. You know, if you fall through something, you could, you know, get stuck. You know, and I think anybody who, you know, reads into Urbex, you know, there are situations that can kill you. And that's obviously a very serious thing. You don't want to do something that's going to do that. But there's that thrill of exploration, the thrill and the excitement of seeing things that you've never seen before. I mean, mountain climbers, do what they do. You have people who go hiking out into, the wilderness. Proper preparation and gear and knowledge, especially, are very important when you're going to undertake anything that entails risk. For me, I don't do heights very well at all. At some of the places I've seen explored, I wouldn't touch the 10-foot pole. Not even an 11-foot pole. Just things are too sketchy, too high up. It's not my thing. If I'm inside a building, I can poke around all day. I can explore all day. And it's something I find fun. And it's something a lot of people find fun, apparently, because, hey, like I said, there's a lot of YouTubers out there that do just that. So, I guess that would be the, in my opinion, the best takeaway from that is knowledge. Knowledge of what you're going to attempt to undertake. Knowledge of the hazards. What kind of condition is the building in? Is there asbestos? Is there black mold? Because none of that is stuff that you want to tangle with. So, in that regard, just be mindful of where you're going, what you're doing, if you decide to go explore an abandoned building. And obviously, there's some places that are going to be safer than others, but, you could be exploring an old empty field, and there could be a hidden pit that you didn't see because there was a bunch of weeds covering it. You could fall in. So I guess probably the other tip would be don't go by yourself. Always have somebody, at least one other person with you, because if something happens to one person, that one person may be stuck, and that may cost them their life. Whereas if there's a second person there, they can go get help. They can call for help if you're in cell service range. At some places, if you go way out of the way, you may not have cell service, so that's also something to remain aware of, too. So, I'd say, yeah, in that regard, if you're interested in Urbex, there are groups out there that undertake it. I know people who have, talked about groups that, they take it so seriously where they've got, like, inflatable rafts to deal with flooded areas and all that, and it's incredible. And I would highly recommend, if you are considering looking into this kind of thing, do the research, look it up online, reach out to some of the established Urbex groups out there, and talk to people who have done it. Let them, mentor you or give you information that you might not have thought of otherwise. Don't go out there unprepared. And that's generally good advice for life in general, but especially with any kind of, again, risky undertaking that you may do. So, if you go out there, go with knowledge, go be safe, go have fun. Don't trash places. Don't graffiti things up. One caveat to that I have seen that I do like, there are people who will tag places that are especially complex, and they will actually provide information. If you have to tag something, tag it because you're leaving someone helpful information, like, hey, no floor ahead. You may have just saved somebody's life. In that regard, I kind of feel that tagging, perfectly A-okay if you're doing it for that reason. So, that said, I'm almost to work. The video is just about to hit 30 minutes long, so I hope you've enjoyed Ra's Daily Drive, and I will catch you all later. Take care.